never said I oppose fracking. Show the tape. Put it on your website. Put it on the website.
Live from Clark Studios in Rochester, New York. Broadcasting around the world. You're listening to You Made It Political, where the voice of the keyboard warrior is finally heard and the arguments presented are put to the political test. And now, here's your host, Matt Clark.
Good afternoon, America, and happy Friday. I hope you guys had an awesome week. Sorry for the massive disappearing act over the last 2 weeks, but we have been busy as hell trying to launch our new PatriotOneNews.com 100% completely independent citizen journalist website. This thing is going to be epic. It's going to change journalism forever. And I can't wait for you all to learn more about it, and we'll get into that later in the show. But we've been busy at work trying to change the world. We're on a mission. We're going to take out the mainstream media, and we're going to do it one citizen journalist at a time. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. We have an epic lineup. We're going to talk about Trump. Trump's back. Number one spot for the presidential election 2024. He has finally moved his way back up to the presidential favorite for all betting sites across America. We'll go through the odds in just a minute. We'll also go through Governor Ron DeSantis and his fight vowing to take down Biden and the vaccine mandate, something that DeSantis has been fighting very hard on the sidelines. We're going to talk about his progress and what's going on that end. We'll also get into what's going on today in Chicago. Right now in Chicago, 50% of the police department is now walking off the job. They are defying the vaccine mandate. They're telling Lori Littlefoot to take a hike. They do not care. They are done. The union chief is saying, please defy the mandate. They are walking off the job. Over 50% of the Chicago Police Department are leaving. We'll get into that. We'll play a clip from him. We'll also discuss the fact that this whole defund the police movement has been an utter disaster, an utter failure. And are you surprised? Because listen, guys, everything that the Democrats touch, as Donald Trump said, turns to shit. We know it does. The defund the police movement is going that direction as well. Over 5,300 New York police officers retired or quit in 2020, and it's just growing. We'll also get into retail sales, retail, consumer goods, logistics, as well as what's going on in California. Even the liberals are starting to hate California and want out at record pace. So we'll start the show off with Trump. We've got, and listen, for those of you guys who haven't followed the situation, and it blows my mind, it absolutely blows my mind that President Trump hasn't sat at the number one spot since he left office. But he hasn't. All of the betting sites, all the booking agencies, Vegas, betting sites from around the world have had Joe Biden and Kamala Harris sitting at the number one and the number two spot for pretty much the entire time since Trump has left office. But that just changed. Finally, after like 8 freaking months of Biden destroying America, sending this country down the shitter. I mean, it can't get any more disastrous. Afghanistan and just everything else that Biden's done. Now we have this logistical issue. Cargo ships are stuck by the hundreds, if not the thousands, off the coasts of America. Nobody can get their goods. I mean, it's just like these guys can't do anything. Peter Buttigieg, by the way, who's responsible for transportation, is on freaking vacation. Have you noticed that? Every single time, every time a disaster occurs in America, it's like the Democrats' MO to go on vacation. Every single time there's an issue, Biden heads off to Camp David. Peter Buttigieg is now nowhere to be seen as cargo ships are piling up offshore every single time. So I'm not surprised that Donald Trump has finally made his way back to the number one spot. So according to PatriotOneNews.com, Joe Biden is absolutely stunned. And he's stunned because Donald Trump is now the 2024 presidential betting favorite. Let's take a look at what this means exactly. So what's going on here? I mean, listen, I can't believe Biden has sat in the number one spot for this long, okay? I mean, it was just a matter of time before he got knocked down. They've been going back and forth, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, even Nikki Haley, DeSantis. Quite a few of them have been even up there above Trump. Okay, since Donald Trump left office, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have swapped back and forth several times between the number one and the two spots, with other top picks like DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Mike Pence lingering either just above Trump or just below Trump. But for the first time since Biden took office, the latest 2024 presidential election odds now have Donald Trump getting over 54% of bets, making him the favorite to win. Maybe there is hope for America after all. I mean, I guess we're not going batshit crazy at the end of the day. Donald Trump is now the massive betting favorite over the last 30 days. 54.2% of bets have been placed on Trump to win the election. Listen, people, this isn't a poll, okay? This is not, we're taking a poll from some freaking random people and that we can't trust. These are people actually going to Vegas, to the casinos, to the bookies, to the online betting sites, and they're putting their money on Trump. So when I say Trump has not been in the number one spot since he left office, it's not because I'm going according to polls. I'm going according to Americans who have put their money on Biden and Kamala. And now 54% of bets are now coming in for Donald Trump. So clearly the American people are now awake. Okay, they've realized what an insane position and what just a disastrous job Joe Biden has been for America, that they're now saying, you know what, I honestly don't believe Kamala Harris or Biden can win anymore. And I think if, you know, first of all, they're betting on Trump, even though Trump hasn't officially announced. That has to say something. They're actually putting their money on a person who's not even a political candidate. Okay, I mean, let's be honest. Right now, Trump's just a private citizen. So it's not like he's announced and then they all went rushing to put their money on Trump. He hasn't announced yet. And we're already seeing 54% of all bets across all betting sites across the entire world come in for President Trump. So that's got to tell you something. Even in Europe, according to oddschecker.com, European odds makers have also moved Trump from plus 650 to plus 350. And as a result, he's the odds-on favorite to win the election. Harris has moved from plus 350 to plus 550, moving her back to third place. Joe Biden remains in second place, though his odds shifted from plus 400 to plus 375. This may come as a shock in America, but it makes perfect sense in Europe because they actually go by statistics in Europe, not emotion, like we do in the United States. So we'll follow that. We'll check in with the odds checker, and we'll see exactly how this story or situation progresses. In other news, we now have DeSantis, okay, fighting harder than ever. Okay, he's fighting harder than ever. And Governor Ron DeSantis has vowed to fight President Trump or President Biden's COVID-19 vaccine mandate on employers and workers. Listen, I don't want to say we're getting crushed because we're not. Joe Biden and the Democrats, they want you to think that America's on board with the mandate. And let me tell you right now, they're not. Okay? Unions across the country are disgusted by this, except for the teachers' unions. The teachers' unions are welcoming these mandates with open arms because some reason teachers think that they're more prone to the virus than every other human being on planet Earth. But whatever, that's the agenda that they're going with. And it could also be because of the political corruption involved to the teachers' unions being the largest supporter of the Biden campaign. So now they feel like they have to cozy up to each other, regardless of the science, even though the science has nothing to do with children. They're now getting ready to force the vaccine on the children, even though they are the last demographic on planet Earth that needs the vaccine. But besides the teachers' unions, every other union, most businesses across America right now, American Airlines just joined the fight. We saw what happened last week with Southwest Airlines and their mysterious weather problems. Well, we all know what happened. It was just them going on strike because they're not okay with the mandate. We're starting to see this from a lot more businesses. The media doesn't want to talk about it. They want to bury it. And Joe Biden and the White House and Jen Psaki continue to run with the narrative and basically lie to the American people that, hey, everybody's on board with this. The Labor Department's going to get ready to roll out. Well, they're not. They're just hoping that you all just fall in line and suck it up. But that's not happening. So Governor DeSantis is now vowing harder than ever to go up against these mandates. Now, we already knew that, but what's changed? What's actually going on as far as DeSantis is concerned? Well, the Republican governor on Thursday said Florida will challenge Biden's mandate in federal court. So now DeSantis is now actually going to start challenging the mandate. He said, quote, let's not have Biden come in and effectively take away, threaten to take away the jobs of people who have been working hard throughout the entire pandemic. DeSantis said during a news conference in Fort Myers, he said, I am offended that a police officer could potentially lose their job. And that's what's happening. And we saw what just happened in upstate New York and throughout all of New York. 78,000 nurses just quit. They don't care. Okay? They quit. Kathy Hochul, governor of New York State, claims there's no issue here. There's no problem. Most nurses are vaccinated, which is a complete lie. Because as of a couple weeks ago, when the deadline hit for New York and nurses to get vaccinated or lose their job, it was something like only 86% were actually vaccinated. And even that number, I don't entirely agree with. Well, add now another 30,000 on top of the 78,000. 30,000 home healthcare workers in New York State have now quit as well. So we have a massive shortage, so bad that we know she's called in the National Guard, which, by the way, aren't vaccinated, nor do they need to be vaccinated until like next year sometime, which doesn't make any sense. So the whole thing is completely contradictory of itself, and just goes to show that the science and the health was never the issue in the first place. It's just a power grab. And Kathy Hochul, who I refer to as the Wicked Witch of the East, is doing everything she can to maintain her vicious grip on the healthcare sector. But that might change. And it might change when we see people like DeSantis and Chicago Police Department, which we'll get into next, talk about the fact that they are defying these mandates. They want nothing to do with it, and they'll quit. So unless you guys want to be home with nobody to call when an intruder breaks into your house and holds you at gunpoint, I suggest you start backing these people up. It might be time for the American people to say, you know what, politicians, enough of this BS. Let's get rid of this crap. It's time to go back to the old normal, because right now I'm getting scared for my family's life. I'd like to have an officer to call regardless of whether they're vaccinated or not. Trust me, when you're held at gunpoint, when your kids are in trouble, you're not going to really give a crap who's vaccinated and who's not. You're just going to want law enforcement to show up. So DeSantis is saying, listen, this is ridiculous that we're even talking about the police being potentially axed for not falling in line with medical tyranny. Ron DeSantis' comments came 3 days after Texas Republican Greg Abbott issued an executive order barring all COVID-19 vaccine mandates in Texas by an entity including private employers. So Abbott down in Texas said, listen, I don't care. I straight up do not care. We are barring this. We're not doing it. We're not doing it. Now, whether the federal government will come back and fight Abbott and DeSantis on this is a different story. From what I understand and from what I've researched, the federal government can pull rank in this situation, which I find odd, seeing that when President Trump was in charge, calling the shots, all the Democrat state governors refused to comply with pretty much every executive order that he threw at them. So I'm not quite sure now why all of a sudden the federal government is able to pull rank over the states when throughout pretty much Trump's entire presidency, everything that he tried to get accomplished couldn't get done. It's because the state governor said, you know what, I'm all good. How many times did Cuomo said, Trump, thanks, but no thanks. We're okay. We're going to do things my way. So I'll be curious to see if Trump can actually combat Abbott's and DeSantis's barring of these mandates. We'll find out very shortly. All it takes is one state to win, and it opens the floodgates for all 16 other states. There are 16 states right now currently banning the mandate. They want nothing to do with it. In schools, in the workforce, period. So Abbott and DeSantis are not on their own, people. South Dakota, just a whole handful of other states, South Carolina. There's a whole list of 16 other states who are now backing DeSantis and Abbott. The Biden administration doesn't want you to know that. The mainstream media doesn't want you to know that. But there are more than just two states fighting medical tyranny right now. Many Republicans, including DeSantis, have said vaccination should be a personal choice, and people who have become naturally immune to COVID-19 should be exempt from the mandate. I completely agree. DeSantis has become a potential candidate for the 2024 Republican presidential nomination since the pandemic began, as he has opposed COVID-related restrictions such as vaccine passports, mask mandates, and lockdowns. So we'll see what happens as DeSantis now gets ready to challenge Biden's mandate. Who else is challenging the mandate? Well, we have Chicago. Chicago is on a mission to get rid of the nonsense, to get rid of the tyranny, and they have just straight up defied the mayor's order or requirement or mandate, which is today. Lori Lightfoot has said to all Chicago police, today's the deadline. Get the jab or get out. Now, here's the funny thing. If you dig into this and read the article, the interesting thing is that Lori Lightfoot has said, okay, the mandate's today, but if you defy it, I still want you to come to work tomorrow. It's like, Lori, like, you either have a mandate or you don't. You don't tell people that if they defy it, that they're expected to show up to work tomorrow, because that kind of contradicts the entire situation. So Lori Lightfoot is already starting to backpedal and go back on her word here. And we'll see what happens come Monday. But she has told all Chicago police that if they defy the mandate deadline today, they're still expected to come to work throughout the weekend, because they're probably not going to be able to start asking everybody whether they got the jab or not until Monday. So that's kind of her way out of looking like she's backpedaling, which we all know she is. Let's take a look at a clip here by the Chicago Police President, John Catanzara, who is urging officers to defy the mandates. He also threatened to take Lori Lightfoot's administration to court if she enforced the mandate on the Chicago Police Department. Let's take a listen.
President. it's safe to say the city of Chicago will have a police force at 50% or less for this weekend coming up. That is not because of the FOP. That is 100% because of the mayor's unwillingness to budge from her hard line.
Fraternal Order of Police President John Catanzara says the police union is preparing legal action over the city's vaccine mandate, and he's urging rank-and-file officers not to comply. The vaccine mandate requires all city employees, including police officers, to be fully vaccinated by this Friday at 11:59 p.m. or to submit to twice-a-week COVID-19 testing on their own time and their own dime.
It's the city's clear attempt to force officers to Chicken Little, the sky is falling into compliance.
They're going to have
Do not fall for it.
In Chicago,
hold the line
of 50% or less, because they're defying the mandate. So it's not looking good there in Chicago. I wouldn't want to be living in Chicago right now. I think things are going to get very ugly this weekend. They're not going to budge. The police department in Chicago is not budging. This isn't a game of who's going to crack. Well, it is a game of who's going to crack first, but this isn't a game of the police department's going to eventually bluff, so let's just keep pressuring them. I really don't think they're going to. I think the police department has had enough, and you have to remember, I don't think there's any other police department in the entire United States right now who's more pissed off with their mayor than the Chicago Police Department is with Mayor Lori Lightfoot. If you guys remember, a few months ago, an officer went down, a 19-year-old female officer, and the police department were so pissed off with the mayor because she's put these officers in danger by defunding them, by telling them that they can't use their usual restraining orders, which ultimately defends their lives. So they've kind of they've listened to the mayor because they have to. Essentially, she's their boss, but not anymore. They're done. So they're putting their foot down and they're saying, you know what, Lightfoot or Littlefoot, this is the last straw. We are done with your mandates. We're done with listening to you. And we'll see if the rest of Chicago falls in line and reelects her. I'd be amazed if they did. But things are not looking good in Chicago. So the Chicago Police Union boss tells officers not to comply. He's saying don't comply, and telling Lightfoot that she can expect a 50% or less police department this weekend because they are not going to comply to the vaccine mandate. So the mandate takes effect Friday today and requires all police officers to be vaccinated or get tested twice per week. Police are required to provide their vaccination status to the city by the end of the day, which they're not. 50% of the entire Chicago Police Department is not going to comply. They are going to leave. It is exactly what's happening right now. And the Chicago Union president, Catanzara, estimated about half of his officers have been vaccinated, but he said even those who have received the vaccine agree that a mandate is wrong. So what we might see is 50% of the police department actually walk off the job, but we may see even more who support their fellow brothers and sisters. Even the mandated officers might say, you know what? I'm going to go stand with my colleagues because I don't believe this. I believe this is wrong. This is not a anti-vax versus a vax situation. This is a medical tyranny versus a freedom of choice situation. So even if you are vaccinated, as a true patriot and a true American, it behooves us, or you, or whoever's vaccinated, to get to support those who aren't. If you want the jab, get the jab. If you don't, you don't. But it should be a matter of choice. And I think it's great that the Chicago Police Department, whether they're vaccinated or not, are going to stand with each other and fight this tyranny. Catanzara said everything from this mayor is a dictatorship. He said she just decided she was going to do it and push it on the entire city workforce across the board. Catanzara said the police department is not alone in pushing back on the mandate. He cited first responders, firefighters and labor unions who all expressed opposition. Everybody across the board is up in arms about the mandate. Everybody. So when you hear from the Biden administration that it's the right thing to do, everybody's cooperating, everybody's complying, it's a downright lie. It's not the case. The media and Biden just want you to believe that that's the case, but it's not. Let's take a listen to Catanzara here discuss how disgusted he is with the entire situation and that he's pretty much telling his entire workforce to defy this mandate. He's not going to do it. Let's take a listen to him right now.
Alexa, tell Roomba to vacuum the studio.
Okay, Roomba will vacuum the studio.
Today, Chicago's vaccine mandate takes effect, but in a city surging with violent crime, what does this mean for the men and women who keep it all safe? John Catanzara is the president of the Chicago Fraternity of Police, and he joins us now. Good morning to you, John.
Good morning, Ainsley.
Good morning. So she says this is your option. You can get vaccinated or you can file for an exemption. If you do that and choose not to get vaccinated, then you have to get tested twice a week. Why are you against that?
Well, because the policy first of all, is schizophrenic. The teachers have a different policy. The teachers are literally you're vaccinated or you get tested. You don't have to report your vaccine status. We have a mandate to report our vaccine status by midnight tonight. Doesn't make any sense.
So
That's step one.
You're asking people not to go on the city's portal and report whether or not they've been vaccinated or not.
Correct.
Okay, so what do your police officers say? How many of them are vaccinated or are choosing not to?
The numbers we have are probably around half are not. But even the ones that are still, like myself, believe that a forced mandate is absolutely wrong.
Well, you have a good argument. Why are they making police officers report their vaccination status and not teachers? What is her response to that?
Don't worry about it. Don't look over there. Listen to what I say. Everything from this mayor is a dictatorship. This is all about policy from the top. There was no public outcry for this policy to take effect. She just decided she was going to do it and push it on the entire city workforce across the board. There's low cooperation, and this is just not the police department. You include firemen, first responders. We've gotten calls from laborers union, streets and sand, the water department, you name it. Everybody across the board is up in arms about this mandate, but it doesn't matter.
She said no one's going to be sent home immediately. It's going to take a few days for them to figure out who is and is not complying. She says, but if you don't agree to take the vaccine or get tested twice a week, quote, we will move forward and put people on a no-pay status. How will your officers pay their bills?
Well, I guess we're going to see how that works out because we had a meeting the other night and our lodge had never been more filled with members. They are literally engaged in this fight going forward. They were willing to go into a no-pay status at midnight tonight and get sent home if that's what was going to happen and get locked out by the city. I don't know that that's going to change very much if now they're threatening suspension or even termination. You know, the reality is we have a profession nobody else wants to do right now. They cannot get anybody to go into this police academy. But yet here she is vilifying the police yet again in a city that has over 185 expressway shootings this year alone. Over 280 kids shot this year alone.
There's a horrible
like
situation going on in Chicago right now, and I'll be very curious to see what happens over the weekend. So for those of you who are just joining us, Chicago now is under fire. And they're not the only ones. Chicago's not the only ones who are pissed off. New York City Police Department are just as furious with this entire situation. They have lost already 5,300 New York police officers who have retired or have quit. In 2020, more than 5,300 have quit. So this whole defund the police movement, I mean, I don't know what these mayors are thinking. They're coming up with these mandates at a time where the police departments are already leaving in droves. I mean, they've taken away their tools or resources. They've defunded them. And now the nail in the coffin is, hey, let's go mandate the vaccine and piss them off even more. It's almost like the Democrats, because we all know this whole mandate thing is led predominantly by Democrats. It's almost like the Democrats are trying to destroy our police departments throughout the country. That they're almost trying to put the final nail in the coffin so that we can go towards some sort of other system. God knows what that looks like. But I don't really see any other logical explanation for this, except for the fact that this is intentional. So the defund the police movement is completely backfiring, and New York Police Department officers are collecting record overtime pay amid skyrocketing violent crime. So if you live in New York City, you're in for a rude awakening if you haven't already, because there's hardly any police left in New York City. I mean, defund has crippled them. The mandate has crippled them. They're working their asses off, record overtime. They can't keep up. In 2020, more than 5,300 New York police officers have retired or quit. It's just a disastrous situation. Officers whose base salary is only $42,500. I mean, that's all these people get paid in New York City. $42,500 to deal with this crap. No wonder they're leaving in droves. No wonder they're saying, you know what? You're asking me to risk my life and get shot at on a daily basis. You're making my job more and more difficult. And only I get paid $42,500. So it's no wonder that this whole mandate situation in Chicago is the straw that's breaking their back. That's the final nail in the coffin that's having them really think twice about whether they want to stay on the force. So in New York City, things are horrible. In 2020, more than 5,300 New York police officers have retired or quit, which represented a 75% increase from 2019. So there are officers who will wait until the last half an hour of their tour, and they will come up with some bogus color of some offense. That's what we're not identifying. We're not identifying those who are abusing the system for overtime. Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams has told Bloomberg. Stay tuned, guys. We'll be right back, and we'll discuss what's happening over in California. Even the liberals hate California right now, and half of them want to leave. We'll be right back.
You Made It Political would not have been possible without this book right here, Expert Secrets by my man, Russell Brunson. Russell Brunson wrote this book to help people like you and I become leaders in our space, to gain an audience and a public following that respects, loves, and watches our shows on a daily basis. Expert Secrets will help you find your voice and give you the confidence to become a leader. It'll show you how to build a mass movement of people whose lives you can affect. And most importantly, it'll teach you how to become an expert authority in your field where people actually pay you for your advice. The best part about Expert Secrets is it's absolutely free. You just pay for shipping, whether you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, a podcaster, or a live YouTube streamer. You want to grab a copy of this book. It'll teach you everything from building your audience to driving traffic to making this a full-time job so you can get paid for your passion.
Welcome back to You Made It Political, where the voice of the keyboard warrior is finally heard, and the arguments presented are put to the political test. And now, here's your host, Matt Clark.
All right, guys, welcome back to the show. We've been discussing the fact that Trump is now back in the leaderboard as the 2024 presidential candidate. More than 54% of all bets are now for Trump to win the presidential 2024 election. So we'll keep our eye on that. We also spoke about the fact that there is real trouble in Chicago. 50% of the Chicago workforce is about to walk off the job today as Mayor Lori Lightfoot's vaccine mandate deadline comes to fruition. So we'll see what happens there. Now, it's not only it's not only cities, it's not only red states or red counties that are having a real hard time with the Democrats, okay, or Democrat counties or Democrat mayors. Even the liberal states are now having an issue with their own policies. And we're going to start the rest of the show and discuss something going on in San Francisco where half of people who live in San Francisco actually want to leave because now they're sick of what's going on in their hometown. Half the people in San Francisco want out. Okay? Even liberals want out of their own liberal infested towns. Now, the frustrating thing, the thing that I don't get here, and the thing that really annoys me, is that these liberals are leaving to red states. You think they'd move to other blue states, but they're not. They're leaving to red states. And they're leaving to these red states, and then they're infecting these red states with their liberal ways, their far left progressive liberal ways. I was having a conversation with somebody down in South Carolina, and he said, Matt, it not only are they coming down here, but they're now turning our state blue. And that's happening all over the country. And I just don't understand. I don't get why these Democrats, let's not even call them Democrats, because the moderates are fine. It's these far left radical progressives. Why are they voting for insanity in states like New York and California and then leaving down south after what they just voted for, and then leaving down south and then doing the same thing down south? So it makes no sense to me, but that's actually what's going on. And this is why we have a real problem in America. And now it's happening in San Francisco. Half the people polled in San Francisco actually want out. So even the liberals hate living in liberal cities, because I think they didn't realize, whoa, this is like going a little bit far too left now, far too progressive. So these very liberal progressives that want out of what they once thought was paradise. Well, there's nothing about this picture here that looks like paradise. So according to Fox News, purgatory by the bay, liberals are turning San Francisco into an absolute hellhole. An absolute hellhole. So, I really don't get why we keep doing this to ourselves. I don't understand why we keep, first of all, why they keep falling victim to these far left radical ideologies, and they never put their foot down. They just go with it until finally they're pushed too hard, and then they say, wait a second, that was too far, I want out. It's like, guys, this happens every time. Now, conservatives, Republicans, right-wingers, we know it's never going to end well, and we try to warn even the moderate Democrats. We try to warn the liberals, the progressive. We try to warn them that, listen, you're pushing the boundary too far here. I'm telling you, it's not going to end well. And they don't listen. They vote in these progressives every freaking time. It then goes too far left. And then all of a sudden, they leave. And they leave us, Republicans, conservatives, stuck with the mess to clean up, which we can't even clean up. I mean, look at New York State. Look at California. Republicans are never going to be able to clean this mess up because we're outnumbered in every way possible. The House, the Senate, the legislation. And it's going to take decades to repair the nonsense that's going on. So when I see things like this, that half the people polled in San Francisco actually want out what they voted for in the first place. Listen, I did a live maybe 8-9 months ago. Pelosi was taking tax-funded money to pay for homeless people. I mean, this is Pelosi's doing, yet they keep voting in Nancy Pelosi. So the whole thing doesn't make sense. I don't really understand why they keep voting in the insanity. And when things go too far, they're shocked, can't believe what they're now calling an absolute hellhole in San Francisco. And then they end up leaving us stuck with the bill and to pick up all the far left liberal pieces. So I guess this needs to be a warning to all of you, moderate Democrats, rhinos, who have put us in this absolute nonsense of a mess and disaster, that we really need to think twice before who we vote for. because, listen, it's not looking well. It's not looking good across most Democrat cities. It's an absolute disaster, and it's no wonder that President Trump has now worked his way back to the number one betting pick for the presidential 2024 election. So, guys, if you haven't checked out patriot1news.com, go to patriot1news.com. That is our new media publication for the people, by the people, 100% independent citizen journalists. So go check that out, patriot1news.com. You can also join the group, Patriot One News, on Facebook and get in on the action. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to You Made It Political with Matt Clark. Be sure to like, follow, or subscribe to the show, or leave us a review on iTunes. And if you like our show or want to know more, check out YouMadeItPolitical.com.